How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Before You Buy. This is a segment where I like to talk about the car's features that I like and dislike. So let's get right to it. I'm sitting in the 2020 Mazda 3 all-wheel drive with the premium package. And let's get started with the engine, because this thing has a 2.5 liter inline-4 naturally aspirated. It makes 186 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque. I prefer something that has about maybe 240 to 260 horsepower, maybe something that has a turbocharger in it. I don't know, maybe it's about time, Mazda. What do you think? It's a new decade. It's time to bring back the Mazda Speed 3. The engine itself is called the Skyactiv G. There's really nothing groundbreaking about it, aside from the optimization of intake ports, the piston design, and also the fuel injection system. That's a good thing, because that means that you're going to get good engine reliability out of this thing. If you want the groundbreaking engine, you have to wait for the Skyactiv X. It's just one small letter change, right? So it's not that big of a deal. Actually, it's quite a big deal. Simply put, the Skyactiv X will let your gasoline engine sometimes run like a diesel engine. So that means that you could have a smaller displacement engine, but it can make more power and has better efficiency. So for North American buyers, it's not yet available. So you're going to have to be very patient to get the Skyactiv X in your Mazda 3s. Meanwhile, international buyers, they can get those already. And apparently, there's a huge demand for it. And when it comes to the ride and handling, I think the Mazda 3 shines a little bit better compared to its competitors. That's because this thing has really good road feel, really nice steering feel, and the seats are also awesome. You know, the Mazda engineers spent a lot of time studying the human body and how it behaves as it undergoes through the driving experience. So they studied the human neck and also the human spine, and they designed the chassis, the suspension, and the seats around the jarring nature of going through bumps. So that's not to say that the Mazda 3 completely eliminates the bumpy nature of going over rough roads, but it just makes the driving experience a little bit more fun and a little bit less jarring. You know, this is their whole Jinba Itai, or horse and rider mentality. This is their design and marketing philosophy, to say that the driving experience is improved because the car and the driver is now one and in harmony. Take these cars out for a test drive. Take the Mazda MX-5 out for a test drive, the CX-5, and also the Mazda 3. And I think you'll find that these cars are a little bit more fun to drive compared to its competitors. And it helps that the steering feel, the pedal positioning, and also the shifter is spot on. I like how it's all laid out. I like how the steering wheel is shaped. It's got very slim 3-spoke design. It's almost a throwback to old classic sports cars. I like the weightiness of it, and I also like how the gas pedal is bolted and hinged on the floor, just like Porsches and BMWs. So if I had a manual transmission, I actually have the 6-speed automatic transmission here. Heel and towing and also rev matching is going to feel buttery smooth. When it comes to the transmission, it's not dual clutch fast, it's just alright. The manual transmission version is only available in the hatchback and premium front-wheel drive trim. Very specific. I guess it's because they don't sell a lot of manual transmissions. You do get paddle shifters here, which is mounted on the steering wheel, which is nice. It's not mounted on the steering column, so therefore you don't have to do the pinky dance when you're trying to shift. And of course, this has all-wheel drive, so if you're someone like me who lives in the Northeast and encounter weather like this every once in a while, it's always nice to have all 4 wheels being driven by the motor. But of course, it's no substitute for having proper tires. So public service announcement out there, all-wheel drive is never a substitute. You always have to have proper tires. So if you live in a location that has climate like this, always have a second set of tires. Winter tires, always have them. You do get a mileage hit when you have all-wheel drive, so this thing is rated at 25 city and 33 highway. Your mileage may vary, of course, in the round town driving. I have been able to hit about 25 miles per gallon, but when I drive on the highway, this thing just chews up highway miles, and I've been able to get over 40 miles per gallon in this car. Again, your mileage may vary. As for the exterior and interior design, this is where I really like the Mazda 3. You have eyeballs, so please let me know what you think about the car's exterior and interior design. But personally, I like it a lot. You know, the Mazda 3 has looked angrier and angrier with every iteration. They used to look very happy, but for the 2019 and the 2020 model years, it has looked its angriest. Moving on to the interior, I like how everything is laid out in this car. I like the HVAC buttons and dials, and I just love how simple it looks. You know, I think car designers and engineers try to sometimes cram as many buttons as they can into one small space, and it just looks completely cluttered. And here it just screams minimalism and simplicity, and I like that a lot. Moving on to the infotainment, you see this 8.8-inch screen which has been nestled in between these fairly soft panels here. It looks beautiful, very pixel dense, but you really notice the thick bezels around this thing. It feels like the interior designers provided this much space, but the engineers and the bean counters could only afford something that's this small. So therefore, thick bezels it is. That's just me being nitpicky, of course. It's nice to have smaller bezels because our smartphones have disappearing bezels, but it'd be a little bit nicer to have something with a wider aspect ratio, something that fills out the screen even more. It'll make the car feel even more modern and more luxurious. Another minor downside here is that when you engage the reverse gear, the reverse camera only shows up on a very small portion of the screen. I don't understand why they don't fill that out even more so you could get a wider view of the back when you're backing up. But aside from the screen size, I really like the way the infotainment's laid out. It's very simple, it's not very confusing. Unfortunately, there is no touchscreen, which actually, in my opinion, is a good thing because I believe that touchscreens and driving don't really mix. Instead, you have to control everything via the switchgear that's located right behind the shifter, and I like this a lot because the rotary dials and the buttons are very large and it's very easy to find. As for the user interface, I really like how everything's laid out in a very simple list. Some user interfaces in other cars are very confusing because you could go up, down, left, and right. In this case, you only have menus and you have a simple list. If I want to go to navigation or settings, I go to another set of lists. There's nothing confusing about this so that you could focus more on your driving while you're going through the sub-menus. One thing you should note about the user interface here is that there's really no radio presets like you find in other cars. That's one good way of eliminating all the buttons that you find here normally, but instead you have a favorites list, and this favorites list combines everything that you care about into one simple list. So radio stations, whether it's Sirius XM or FM or AM radio stations. Anyone still listen to AM? But anyway, you could even put your destinations like your home address, your work address, various addresses into one simple list along with your favorite stations. I really like the way this information's laid out in this favorites list. The only downside is if you're someone who likes to manually tune to radio stations, you don't have a tune dial in here anywhere. You only have the volume knob. You also have some fast forward and rewind buttons, which is kind of cool. So if you've been listening for a station for a while, it stores it into memory so that you can rewind to re-listen what you just listened to. Other features I like here is that you have heated seats, which is nice. Unfortunately, there is no heated steering wheel in here, but the upside is that the HVAC vents is located right in front of your hands at the 9 and 3 position, so that while you don't have heated steering wheel, you can warm your hands with the HVAC. That's not really something to brag about, but it'll somehow keep your hands warm when you're driving in the cold. One small thing I like about the Mazda 3 is that the wiper nozzles have been integrated into the wiper arms itself, so that when you want to wash the windshield, fluid is dispersed right by the blade so it doesn't shoot up and coat the windshield with washer fluid. So when you're driving into the sun, sometimes that could blind you. In this case, I think it's a safer and more luxurious alternative. The Mazda 3 also has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and to hook up you have a USB port right up here. You also have another USB location back here, and you also have the Qi wireless charging pad over here, and also the 12-volt plug so that you could plug in your other electronics. As for the back seat, there's really no other amenities besides the leather seating surfaces for your backseat passengers. There's no HVAC vents. There's also no other USB ports, which is kind of disappointing. One weird quirky feature about the Mazda 3 is that there is no way for me to turn off the headlights unless I'm sitting stationary like right now. When I'm driving, there is no physical way of turning off the headlights, which is a good thing because sometimes I still run into people that haven't turned on their lights, and because they have their daytime running lights, they think that they have their headlights on. So a nice safety feature, and I don't really think anyone ever wants to drive with their headlights off, but unless you're spying on someone or something like that. So there you have it. That's my review of the 2020 Mazda 3 all-wheel drive with the premium package. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you like it? Do you hate it? If you considered this video entertaining or helpful, please consider hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe, and also hitting the notification bell so you can get notified anytime we make a new video. We have a lot of videos of new car reviews on this channel and also updates to our project cars, so if you care about any of that, please consider subscribing. I want to end it right there. My name is Hanson. This has been the 2020 Mazda 3 all-wheel drive with the premium package, and I'll see you next time.